What's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. In this video, I want to talk about listening to your conscious. You can think of your conscious as your inner voice that's supposed to be guiding you, that's supposed to be telling you what's morally right or morally wrong. Some people have associated your conscious with the superego from the theories of Sigmund Freud. It's the internalization of society's expectations, essentially, more specifically your parents' expectations, but not only them. And so I think that's a reasonable paradigm for understanding when you are navigating moral conflicts. Like, what is it within you, perhaps that gut feeling, that generally speaking, positive or negative feeling that pushes you towards doing something or pulls you back and maybe talks to you and tells you, like, hey, don't do that. Now, sometimes your conscious gets things right, and you're supposed to listen to it because it knows more than you to a very large degree. That would be in one argument, right? Your unconscious is constantly taking in a whole bunch of information and filtering out and synthesizing it and using your dreams to play with different phenomena in the world. And so there's so much in your mind and in your body that's going on that you aren't aware of. And so when these inner voices speak to you, and let's say specifically again, you're talking about your super ego or your conscious, many times it's helpful to listen to it and then to act upon whatever it is it's saying. Now, another source of information of trying to figure out how to make moral judgments is society. You just look at what other people do. You go on social media and look at the current norms and try to figure out, what's the quote unquote good thing to do, or what's the taboo thing that you can't talk about. Or even just being in the workplace, you get to imitate other people and get a feeling for what their expectations are. And again, sometimes it's very helpful to just conform to the crowd and do what other people are doing, because we would assume that other people are just like you and they have similar goals. They want to make money and they want to achieve status and they want to not suffer, and they want to learn and they want to do things to protect themselves and the people that they care about. So if they're doing something, there's a high likelihood potentially that you imitating their behaviors and their perceptions will help you solve those same problems. Now, here's a few problems with some of the things that I just said. Neither of those sources of information, say your inner voice, your conscious, or society, are perfect. What's more, your conscious and society can conflict with one another. So one question arises: what do you do when society is telling you to do one thing and your inner voice is telling you to do something else, and there's not obviously a clear compromise where you can somehow do both? To try to answer that question, I'm going to lean on the book To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. So I read this book pretty recently as an adult. Many of the people that I've spoken to about the book said that they read it in high school or even in middle school. So I think I just missed that phase somehow. But to me, there are many scenes in that book where the protagonist wrestles with this exact question of how to navigate conflicts between your conscious and society. And so, for those who don't know, To Kill a Mockingbird takes place in the early 1900s in Alabama. I think the specific location is Macomb County. And racism is the norm. The protagonist, Atticus Finch, is a white lawyer who is tasked with defending a black man named Tom Robinson who allegedly beat and raped a white girl. Now, again, the norm in the town is racism, where black people are abused in all kinds of ways, and white people feel that they are better and superior. So the fact that Atticus takes the case, the fact that he accepts it, already indicates that he is someone who is capable or is at least willing to go against the grain and to think for himself and to listen to his conscience, particularly when there's a conflict between his inner voice and society. And he pays the price for it. He accepts this case to defend this black man who allegedly beat this white girl, and his family essentially disavows him. The townspeople curse him out, and then his two children, his daughter and his son, get bullied at school and they get in the fights. And so there's a lot of tension, for lack of a better term, that manifests due to Atticus' decision. And he has this quote in this story. He says something like, the one thing that doesn't abide by majority rule is a person's conscience. And to me, that illustrates that he is aware of this problem that we're discussing, or at least these sets of problems having to deal with navigating individuality and society. Now, Atticus isn't someone who only listens to his conscience. He also listens to society, or at least he listens to other people. So when it comes to dealing with society, again, he is capable of standing outside of it and observing as an individual and making his own decisions. There's actually a scene there where Atticus is facing down an angry mob who want to go to the jail where Tom Robinson is to kill him, and Atticus stands in their way and stands against them and is prepared to defend Tom. So not only is he psychologically willing to go against the grain, he embodies it fully. But there's also a scene towards the end of the book where Atticus's conscience is telling him to do one thing, but he goes against it. So again, towards the end of the book, towards the end of the story, Atticus's son, Jem, a 12-year-old boy, is walking home from school and he gets attacked by the man who actually beat the white girl at the beginning of the story when we're finding out about all of this, or as it's unraveling. And one of the neighbors, his name is Boo Radley, saves Jem and kills the attacker. And so Atticus learns about this. He's glad his son is okay. But his conscience is telling him that this altercation should become public and it should get hashed out in the courts. I mean, someone died. Yes, that is justice from one perspective because he attacked a 12-year-old boy. But should there be justice on the part of Boo Radley? And the sheriff, one of Atticus's friends, offers up a cover story and says that, well, the attacker clearly just fell on his knife. And you can see that Atticus is wrestling with his conscience. He's able to stand outside of his conscience because he's not a slave to it, and to think, well, part of him thinks that the right thing is to make it public, but his friend does have a good point, and ultimately he ignores his conscience and goes along with the cover story. So Atticus can do both. He is able to navigate the moral landscape as he is taking in information from his inner voice and from society. So what is it about Atticus that enables him to do something like that? And throughout the story, we get different characterizations of him that tell us what kind of person he is. And so maybe the answer is we have to practice those skills or those faculties that characterize Atticus so we can learn and attain the wisdom to navigate this problem. So there are just three traits that I want to highlight. One, we learn that Atticus is a great shot. There's a scene where there's a rabid dog that's getting noticed around town, and people are afraid and looking to the sheriff and Atticus to protect them. And so Atticus is given a rifle by the sheriff, and he calmly checks his surroundings, lines up his sights, and takes the shot, and in only one shot kills the animal. And so we learn that it's interesting, the idea that he's a good shot, because to sin is to miss the mark. And so he is the opposite of someone who sins. Obviously, he's not perfect, but that seems to be something that he has a reputation for. Again, he's good at hitting the target. But another way of thinking about that is that he has a faculty for attention. And attention is it's not just another cognitive faculty, it's the cognitive faculty, because attention, which is just prioritizing some set of information in your environment and deprioritizing other information, attention is what enables all of the other cognitive faculties. So before you speak, you're going to ignore certain words and certain stimuli, and then you're going to have certain words that you're going to have at hand as you're speaking. When you're looking around and you're trying to figure out how to act in your world, when you even want to just go to the bathroom, you have to ignore most of your world, and then you have to highlight the salience of certain phenomena so that way you can get where you're trying to go. So attention is crucial, and I think that Atticus's ability to be a good shot is pointing to his ability to pay attention. Now, there's a second trait. We also learned that he taught Scout, his daughter, to read and write, which put her ahead of her peers. And when she was in school, she actually got scolded for being able to do these things already. So we can intimate that Atticus values reason and intellect. So we have attention, we have reason and intellect, and then a third characterization that I would want to highlight is, along with going against the grain in defending Tom Robinson, Atticus and his family also have a cook, a black woman named Calpurnia, and multiple times throughout the story, it's highlighted that Atticus doesn't treat her poorly. He treats her like family. Atticus's wife, the children's mother, is not in the picture. And so Calpurnia has really filled this role. Like, yes, she's the cook and she cleans and she does all of these things, but she also helps raise the kids. And Atticus defends her when the children go against her or defy her. And Atticus has this sister who was really a part of the social norm and feels that it is important to maintain the persona and to be like everyone else. She admonishes Atticus for giving Calpurnia so much responsibility and, I would say, love. And Atticus defies his own sister to maintain the high value that he places on Calpurnia's human dignity. And he trusts her and she's part of the family. And so what do we have? Atticus is someone who pays attention. He is someone who values reason and intellect, but he also values those parts of human nature that I would say go beneath the superficial accidents of our birth, which is something that Martin Luther King would call them, to look at those things that are deeper, that unite us, that reflect our real character. And I think that's what Atticus appreciates in Calpurnia, is that she's not just a black woman, she's a good person who is a part of the family that has been helping him and will continue to help them. So it could be that in order to attain the wisdom to know how to navigate dealing with society, conforming to social norms, and or separating yourself from the mob and listening to your own conscience and contending with your own inner voice, you have to develop a faculty for attention. You have to hone your reason and intellect, your capacity to articulate yourself, your ability to think rationally. And then finally, it could be that you have to practice valuing other people and understanding that they have their own goals, have their own desires, have their own life stories. And rather than treating people like pawns in a group, it is better to see their unique traits that make them who they are, and therefore make them someone capable of offering something unique to the world, given all of the problems that we have. And so what are some practical applications that we can take away from this? I think this points to a few things, but three of the things that I would offer is just, well, it's important to read, it's important to write, and it's important to practice active listening when you're talking to other people. Reading and writing, paying attention, honing your reasoning, honing your intellect, learning about human nature, particularly if you're reading something like To Kill a Mockingbird, if you're reading classic literature, or if you're reading philosophy. The practice of reading and writing is very similar to the practice of paying attention, separating the wheat from the chaff, understanding what's important, understanding what's not important, as well as using your reasoning skills and honing your intellect. And then when it comes to active listening, which is the practice of summarizing what someone is saying to you in a dialogue, in a conversation, back to them such that they accept your version of what they said, that definitely, in my opinion, highlights or would enable you to practice developing an understanding of human dignity and an understanding of human nature. Because what you have to do is you have to put aside your own valuations and your own presuppositions to open yourself up to the values and goals of the other person. When they're talking to you, you have to pay attention. You can't be thinking about what your next response is going to be. You can't fixate on one thing that they say for too long, because then you're missing the bigger picture of what they're saying. You have to open yourself up and imagine that these people are, or whoever it is that you're talking to, is going through something that is meaningful and it's just something important to them. And then instead of responding directly, when you can pull out the gist of what they're saying and then present it back to them, you're also opening yourself up to feedback from them, because you're giving them the opportunity to say, did I actually understand what you said? So I think I'm going to end the video there. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.